Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for your support of Indie Agency News. And let's meet an indie agency. We're going to one of my favorite cities, nay, the United States, but the world, Boston, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Andrew, CEO of, so it's Allen Gerritsen, but I do like the shorthand. I think the A&G really works.
Yeah, totally works for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when did that shift happen? Because I know it's been very clear that that Allen Gerritsen has been one of the most important anchors, not only in the Boston ad community but in the New England ad community. So I'd like you to just go back and tell the story of the agency, and then lead us up to now, where you have a little bit of a semantic shift. We got to visit the amazing offices in Boston. So yeah, run us through the story of Allen and Gerritsen.
Yeah, I would love to. First, thanks for having me on here. So A&G, or Allen and Gerritsen, is 40 years old this year. Paul Allen, Peter Gerritsen were the original founders. Through the years, just by nature, like anything, everybody started to shorten the name and just called it A&G, but we always kind of led into, using Allen and Gerritsen.
Right.
As we were growing, we started in 1985. I've been here since 1995.
Wow.
Coincidentally, it was, our roots were working with almost like sort of being like the outsourced marketing department for a lot of tech startups.
Oh,
and so our roots were very much B2B brands in a lot of technology space. So from our sort of transition became like, well, all these tech solutions, who are they trying to serve? So it was in financial services and healthcare and manufacturing,
right,
and all that. And then this magical moment around 1999 happened where the world became enamored with .com.
Right.
And we'd already kind of theoretically been in that space. And so while the world zigged towards that, we zagged towards the tried and true consumer brands. And some of those brands back then started with bringing a company, TJX, a small company that they were incubating called HomeGoods, and bring them nationally to the market. And while the world stayed focused on .com, we stayed focused on consumer brands and started to build our consumer brand practice.
Right.
And then and through the years, we sort of, kept building ourselves. And then in 2012, we decided to expand beyond New England and ended up in Philadelphia,
right,
and Pennsylvania through an acquisition of an agency there called Neiman.
Yep.
And at that point, we started to lean much more into the A&G part of our brand. Peter Gerritsen had left the agency in 2002. I was the CEO of the agency,
right.
and we had enough equity in the brand that we weren't going to change it. And people asked me like, "Oh, why didn't you put your name on it?"
Right.
Like, if we're going to change our name into that, it's going to be way cooler.
Well, then it starts sounding like a law firm, which would fit in Boston, but
it would. But that's not how we want to be known. No. And we didn't want to be known like, or an accounting firm or something like that. We wanted to be known for what we were like super good at, which was, we like probably one of the best things, the way to describe us is we like have 40 years of like, at this point, helping brands accelerate growth by absolutely positively being unignorable to their audiences.
Right. Well, and Boston's a really, obviously I love it there. I genuinely love Boston and the whole region. And what's interesting about the Boston market is, and I don't mean, the restaurant, but what's interesting about Bose, Staples, Hancock, you go through all of these brands that are both, it's interesting, they're both venerable and forward looking, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting dichotomy between Boston being a being proud of its traditions and but also understanding that tradition can only take you so far.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is born in the academic community there. I think it is such an interesting market. Aside from what we see physically with the new skyline looking from Logan, what are some of the biggest changes in the market that you've seen over the years?
Well, so first of all, I love that question because we actually, one of our clients is Meet Boston, and it's the tourism uh, business that attracting people to come to Boston, frankly.
Right,
And
right.
we kind of like, we sort of, I'll sort of borrow from what we're doing with them, which is, if Boston was founded in 1930 or 1630,
Right.
but it's never settled.
That's
And what I
interesting.
love
Yeah.
about being in a city that is dynamic and constant forward thinking is that you do have a lot of innovation here. You have unbelievable education system that is driving a lot of that startup community aspect that's frankly changing the way we live our lives,
Right.
and it's great. And so we're tasked with telling, Boston has a certain reputation, and we want to
Right.
tell the stories that haven't been told.
And,
And those are old stories, new stories, the next stories. And we have such an honor of being able to do that. And
right.
make everybody realize that Boston's a city on the move. It's
Yeah.
dynamic.
I like your mayor, Michelle Wu. She's something.
Yeah.
I like her a lot.
Yeah.
I like her a lot. Well, let's dig a little bit in. You've touched on a few things about what has made the agency so great over the long haul. And every agency has a long list of stuff that they're good at, but usually a few things rise to the top. What would you say are the top 3 core strengths of the agency?
Yeah. I talked a lot about audience and all of that, but the reality is like people come to us, brands come to us to shake markets, shift behaviors, and frankly supercharge growth.
Mm,
And we've had the benefit of staying power and being along, so we've seen lots of different business cycles and all of that, and we know how to deal with the times of uncertainty, but we also know how to deal with the times of certain. And some of those things we kind of live at this, and we have for a long time, at this cross section between this obsession around our clients' target audiences
mm-hmm.
and cultural relevance. And that's what we use to really sort of navigate all the different various business cycles that brands go through. And that's what has given us the longevity. It is what has entered us into new categories and industries. And some of the things, being here in Boston, we're in spaces that are around like clean energy and sustainability and
Right.
science, but we also work on retail and commerce and all that. So travel,
Right.
tourism, higher ed.
It's a nice wide thing, and I want to talk a little bit about the market, because independence it's interesting because, and listen, I did my time at Mullen Lowe when I was at the Martin Agency.
Yeah.
You got Arnold, but I take a look. You look at oh God, why am I spacing the IPG agency? Freaking the agency that just got
Hill Holiday.
Hill Holiday.
Yeah.
It's like on the tip of my tongue, and it's like so obvious. So Hill Holiday was Holdco. Now it's independent. And then I look at who we have in Boston: yourselves, Crackerjack Communications, Colossus, Full Contact, Hatch, Yellow House Consulting, and I mean, when we were there, so Kyle O'Brien and I were in Boston, and I love the unity. And someone like a Pam Hamlin, who was at Arnold for a long time now at GYK, the energy is different there, and part of it I think is born into this idea of independence, and I think that Boston is unapologetic in a lot of ways, and I think unapologetically independent. It's a thing. I mean, it's absolutely a thing. So I'm curious why independence matters so much to you as an agency, but how is it going to infuse throughout the market to help it continue to grow?
Well, what's awesome about being here is we're all friends.
Right.
We root for each other. There is a camaraderie. There's an attitude like, if it's not us, let it be one of you.
Right.
Because we want, we have great brands that are here. We don't want them to leave the market to go somewhere else.
Right.
And I think we all, while we'll compete, we root for each other.
Right.
And that's a really super dynamic. And our lives may be different depending if you're a holdco or if you're you're an indie. But let's start with the fact that we, for us, we're in Boston and Philadelphia. It's where
Right.
independence in this country was born.
Right.
That's just
good point
in us. You've been, we call it the third space versus an office, because
right.
we believe in that whole sense of community. And while everybody chatted about return to office, we talked about return to that sense of community and being together and open up our spaces to folks. But here in Boston, we overlook Boston Harbor. The Tea Party ship is right here. In Philadelphia, we overlook the Liberty Bell and Independence Hall. And it's like, talk about an agency that is like just rooted in that notion of independence and that restless creative entrepreneur spirit. And and it's deep rooted, like in Philly. This is actually an interesting soundbite, which was inspired by you, frankly, is that the first advertising agency was in 1842 in Philadelphia.
Right.
And what's really interesting about that is when they expanded to a second location, it was Boston. And so that whole notion of this independence corridor, we just live it. We embody it. We love that spirit, and we support other agencies that are doing that. That they're either starting their agency, or there were a lot of people that, for me, like, that were ahead of me, that gave me advice and wisdom and the perseverance. And with the one thing, it's like, pay it forward, because there's going to be that next agency leader, especially here in Boston, that's going to look to you, for that. And that's independence. That's like not worrying about the wrong things. It's about doing what's right for each other in the community, and ultimately, for our clients and the brands.
So here's what's funny to me. So you mentioned that Air moved up to Boston, and I don't know if you have an answer for this, and if you don't, that's fine. I wonder if they were the agency for W.B. Mason. So if you know, you know. If you know, you
Yeah.
I mean, it would make sense.
What's interesting is Air is actually the first full service agency.
Right.
Okay, and they came around in 1869.
Yeah. So Mason was born. Oh, wow. So W.B. Mason, he was born in Auckland. So he went to the U.S. and then he was in Brockton in 1872.
Yeah.
Look at that. Oh my God.
And then Staples was born.
And then
Staples was like, all right, that's a Boston brand,
I mean, you name check some of these Boston brands like Bose.
Oh,
I mean, God, who are some others? I mean, there's so many.
Well, TJX is here. Yeah. Dunkin, which is also one of our clients.
Can you explain this Dunkin thing, please? Y'all are like foam at the mouth at Dunkin. Like, it's like, I get it. but like y'all, we don't. I think there's like one Dunkin in Oregon.
Right, because you're like from the West, where Starbucks,
Right. No, I know.
Starbucks
But
came east, Dunkin's going west.
I mean, the donuts are phenomenal. Well, don't get me wrong. My daughter loved the Sabrina Carpenter,
Oh yeah,
drink. So, it's obviously it's a very, it's a great brand, but like I don't know. It's just from someone out here, I'm just like, it's just funny to me. It's like, you want some Dunkin'? I'm like, that's replacing the word for coffee. I was like, all right.
yeah. Well, you have to say it with the Boston accent.
That's right. You want some fucking Dunkin'. And you have to curse a lot, which
Yeah.
is fine. No, really, it's amazing. And so as we're talking about brands, and you've articulated a few reasons, but if you could distill it down into one or two thoughts, what is the main reason a brand should work with A&G?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, again, number one is this like again crazy obsession about target audiences.
Yeah.
One of the things that we hear so much from clients is that we are data rich but absolutely insight poor, and so
Interesting.
we work with them to kind of like, what's the insight that's going to move markets.
Right.
The other is, and this goes back a little bit to our name, is years and years ago, we leaned in to what connected us, the ampersand, okay, in our name. And when you come to our spaces, you see ampersands everywhere. Like here's like glass.
Right. I have a hat, by the way. I have a hat. Yeah. Which I was gonna wear, but then since you're from Boston and I'm a Philly guy, so yeah.
Well, so basically we like, and this is the independent, we are absolutely liberated by this notion of the ampersand. And what that means is it is the connector,
Right.
connects things together. But it is also the notion of that the quality of a great idea should never stop short.
Right.
And it should be the engine that builds.
Right.
So everybody here is tasked with, and then what? And what if?
Oh,
and
yeah.
Imagine if you could, and the list just goes on and on. And so the real reason to come to us is like we think about brands.
Right.
It doesn't stop with communications. It's
Right.
all the way through the experience. It's the intelligence that you gather. It is, and then what should I do next? And
Right.
it's scenario planning and all of that. And so we are absolutely, it's the freedom, of liberating an idea beyond just sort of a piece of creative or a communications piece or an experience.
That photo behind you, is that the Cape? Is that what you mash pay?
That is Martha's Vineyard.
You freaking mash pay?
Martha's Vineyard.
Wellfleet, you're gonna walk around there?
No, it's Martha's Vineyard.
Mashpee is my favorite place on the Cape to say.
Mine is Edgartown.
You got Brewster.
Yeah.
You go over to Brewster, Yarmouth.
Yeah.
We did do the Cape Cod chip factory tour. Or the visit. Yeah, that was solid. Just so solid. Oh my God. Yeah, we stayed in Mashpee. It was really nice.
Great place.
Oh God, love. Yeah. It's far too long since we've been there again. Before we divert into tourism talk. I want to talk a little bit about talent, and we've talked a tiny bit about the third space. Again, we visited it, and it's you and I have been around a minute, right? Yep. So I don't want to say we're jaded. However, over the years, you'd go through and be like, yeah, it's an ad agency office. It's it's cool. This blew me away because it's not so much, you'd mentioned the view, you'd mentioned like those are table stakes vis-a-vis what you have there that I think would be incredibly, that would for talent be like, yeah, I'm digging that. It's like this feels really, really good to me. Talk a little bit more about it because I love how considered it was. You put a ton of thought into it. It wasn't just willy-nilly. It was very, very well thought out. So basically, what should talent know about the agency? Why should they be putting A&G on their list? And talk a little bit more about the space, because it really genuinely, again, you and I are been here a minute, and
Yeah.
we were walking around going, okay, this is amazing.
Well, so kind of quick story. In October 2021, we needed to start to negotiate our lease again for January 2023. And I am sitting in our ginormous space with me and a few other people
Right.
every day. And our landlord's negotiation was, we're going to double the square footage price. And I'm like, okay. So I went to Amazon and I looked up crystal balls, and they were sold out. So what do you know about real estate
God.
that I'm not understanding? Because, the world changed.
Right.
And it was at that moment in time that I realized I need to make a decision about the future of this company. And that you will never hear me say the words return to office. It implied we were going to go back to the way it was, that it always was. And we as a company were always flexible. That's part of being independent.
Sure.
Like if you had to drop your kids off, come in late, if you had to leave early, like we never said no. And so we had to sit back for a minute and be like, what is true to us? And the flexibility piece was true to us. But we wanted to create the future of the workplace, not a return to old ways of doing it. And when you start to think about that as a strategy, it's the future of the workplace, it's the future of the workforce, and it's frankly the future of the work. And while we started with our space, the whole notion had a come back to us, which was that return to sense of community, that intentional reasons to be together. And so when we built this space, desks, for instance, are something you could do at home.
Right.
Like sitting at a desk by yourself, you can do that at home. We want you to come here and interact with people. So we started to borrow from other industries, specifically hospitality, and said, how do we create an environment where it's welcoming, that frankly, beyond, like, it's programmed, like there's activities, there's reasons to be together, but also recognize the fact that people have new habits, and we weren't going to break their habit. We just wanted to sort of jump in and be a part of their lives in a different way.
Right.
And so it just goes through, while it started as a space conversation, it really was all about, like, how are we going to work, who we're going to hire, the types of people.
Yeah.
And so we're very much focused on how do you break down silos.
Right.
How we work. And easier said than done, because there's craft and craftsmanship and people, but we just have this camaraderie around the breaking of silos. We also, I think why people come to us is you don't get so pigeonholed into you do this thing on this part of our of a business, and we really want people to see how things connect.
Right.
And so we also wanted to back it up with the types of clients we work with.
Right.
And so not just simply say, hey, we're committed to these things, but prove it and give people the opportunity to work on some really interesting types of brands, like the Legal Defense Fund, or Freight Farms, which is in the clean energy and sustainability space. It's like really interesting brands in our portfolio.
Right.
And so we ask everybody to kind of like jump in the pool together, like work together, but also like we don't have to be together all the time.
It's like a family where it's like, it's
cool, like I love my family dearly. I don't want to be home with them every day, but love them. Yeah. But like everybody,
and they don't want to be around you or me. I get it. Yeah.
So honestly, we just look for the superpowers that you have personally and professionally,
right? And
then figure out how to just like mesh the superpowers together, because we know we are better together.
Right.
And so how does that translate into who we are as a company? And, I ask people all the time, why'd you join us? Like, what was it about this? And there's usually, well, I can say this, is such a pushback to the holding company model that they love the spirit of the freedom, the thinking about what ifs and the
Right.
ampersand and being liberated
Yeah,
by
Boston and
that.
Philly too.
Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to Mike Vrabel, how
Yeah.
pissed off are you that I'm wearing this Eagles hat right now?
Well, so not, like if it's not us, it's them, because we are, we have a whole bunch of people in Philly, so it's hard not to be an Eagles fan.
Let's
It was a challenge and probably one of the great dividers when the Patriots versus the Eagles are in the Super Bowl, and there's only going to be one winner, and we can't have it divide us as a company.
You're being so unbelievably. I mean, how much does that piss you off? Right there. There it is.
I know.
Philly special.
I know.
You're so angry right now. Look at me like baiting the Boston guy. You're trying so hard.
I'm trying hard.
You're trying so hard. All right, let me go back to Portland.
You're being mean.
I know I am. I know. But I got nothing. You've got what? 7 titles? I've got 2. So, like let's not get and Celtics forget it. I mean, so I don't want to hear it from you. This is a new question.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you about the 4As too here in a second. But would you consider yourselves weirdos, misfits, or underdogs?
Ooh.
Or a combination of them? I mean, I can tell you the Philly people are weirdos.
Yeah.
We're just naturally weirdos.
We have a combination of those, but what I would say is the underdogs. Because you know why? We thrive by working with challenger brands.
Yeah.
And we love the ones who want to be better, do better, and maybe make life better.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
I would just I would sort of say that. But there are days when we are weirdos and absolutely misfits because we have this like relentlessness.
I've met Pete before. I've spent a little time with Pete, so that tracks. That tracks. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean that as a compliment, by the way. Yeah. So talk a little bit about your role at the 4As, and obviously we're friends with a lot of people at the 4As. Marla is sashaying away, and she's done a remarkable job during her tenure. Susan Franciscini, who's a great friend, and I've had a chance to meet. Got a chance to meet several great folks at Ad Age Small Agency in Boston last year. So talk a little bit about your role and where things are tracking with 4As at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I committed to the 4As like a really long time ago. Honestly, I was a new CEO, and I searched out advice from people who've been there, done that, and it pointed to like join the 4As, and we were a member and we were taking advantage of things. And then we had like a client file for bankruptcy on us.
Oh.
And I had no idea what to do. And it was a rough one. This is like 20 something years ago.
Yeah.
But I turned to the 4As, and honestly, they helped me navigate in a way that I had no idea what to do.
Right.
And so I've always had this sort of like love for the organization.
Yeah.
Because they helped me in a tough time, but also helped me push so that we are a 40-year company. So I have, like anything, whatever you put into is what you're going to get back. And I've put a lot into it. And today I'm on the executive board. I'm the treasurer secretary.
Yes, you are.
I reminded them, like, I'm not a CFO, but I'm not, I'm a CEO. But it is an amazing organization. Marla, an incredible leader.
Yeah.
And for the next leader that's going to come in, it's like, I'm super curious because it is always been about the future of where's our industry going, while sort of helping the members in the real time. And they represent us in so many different forums, and there were things that I didn't understand, like oh, I'm like, oh, that's not for me. But if you own your own company,
Mm-hmm.
there are things that they do that it may not be part of your day to day. You need to know about. Like everything going on in Washington.
I was just going to say the
you need
lobbying
to
part
know.
of it. Yeah, the lobbying part of it is that's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
it's obviously huge, and having that advocacy on a really an official level
Yeah.
it's you're right. It's really, really important.
Well, and again, there are learning and development. It's like
Right.
to build on people's superpowers, you can't get anybody that's more relevant, even if it's just leadership training. It's leadership training in an agency, or
right.
all that. So the next couple of years, it's like, we talk about this, like this industry changes.
It changes weekly.
Pretty quickly. But you know what? It always has.
It always has. Thank you for reminding us all. Yeah, everyone seems to think this is something new. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's all about AI. Yeah, well, there's been plenty of other things along the way. It's another tool. Like
it's another
new jobs created from it and all of that. It's not replacing.
No, these nice little hype cycles.
Yeah. Well, I'll just remind you, a couple of years ago was the metaverse. So.
Oh my God, I put all of my money into that.
NFTs, metaverse. Like there's always
when those in-housing. The NFTs. Well, the in-housing thing. Here's what I will say about in-housing. That's been going on forever.
It has.
It's
my whole
been,
career.
It's been positioned differently for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I will say, and I do believe this, there are some companies that help staff in-house agencies who do a really, really good job.
Yeah.
Now, it's excellent work. I would say that brands that don't look at that model, which a vast majority of them don't, or it's a smaller brand, the thing is you really do need an agency. And so the biggest thing I say is you got to trust that the people that you're putting your business in their hands, they take that seriously. And so don't think it's just some little exercise where they're making cute ads. Guarantee you that when you commit to an agency, especially an indie agency, and hopefully one of our members, that you know that they're going to do everything in their power. Because here's the one thing. So Andrew, we've talked about the independent part and some of the aspects of independence that people do bring up. It's agility. It's this. So there's a few things. Number one, access to the highest levels. Number two, you're going to get the same team. You're going to end with the same team you started with once the project is shipped. The holding company has to worry about their business. And so sometimes they're not making decisions in the best interest of a client. I said sometimes. Yep. So all of you in the holdcos, you can calm the fuck down. But there's so many aspects to it. I mean, we talked about speed and agility. Again, table stakes a little bit. But then when you start deepening it, the other thing too is you're starting to see incredibly accomplished people who were in holdcos that have either left on their own doing or unbeknownst to them, and they are either starting their own shtick or they're landing in some of these great independent agencies. So I'm going to tell you right now, brands, you know what? This is an ad. We have a thing called Indie Agency Connect, and you got to connect with us because we've got over 200 amazing agencies. Speaking of brands, thought exercise here. You've seen several professional broadcast segues throughout, Andrew, by the way. That was one of them. Whether they're a client or not, which CMO or marketer would you like to say hello to?
Oh, absolutely. My next one. My next client.
Oh, yeah. I like that answer.
Hey, do you mind if I just swing back to the in-house?
Oh, we're going back. Yeah, no, go for
it. I just want to, and this may be like, people may not like this. It is an in-house department. It is not an in-house agency.
That's fair.
Okay. Because, so I spoke at the ANA's in-house event, and it's like, all right, I'm being like sort of fed to the wolves, and it's not an either or,
right?
It's a together, it's an and, it's an ampersand, and all that. And I interviewed like 25 like huge CMOs in preparation for that, and they all kind of said the same thing. It's like we turn to agencies for the big idea.
Yeah.
For the things that we can't see ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's not diminishing anything that they're doing internal in the department. But like I say to people when they decide to go in-house, it's like the core of their business is not creative. Their core of the business is insurance. It is financial services. You better love the core, because it's not the core of our business is creativity and being surrounded by those people.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's in media or, creative department or the PR department or whatever, but like, be really clear. It's a department, not an agency.
Well, and the analogy I give, the analogy I give is it's like putting a football player on hockey skates. You never know what the hell you're going to get.
Yep. And I have enormous respect for the people that are in-house.
We
love working with them.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want to be them.
But here's, and again, this goes back to this thing of whatever level you're bringing an agency in on, it's just trust them. Seriously. It's just, and you know what? You have to let go and trust a little bit, because if you hold on so tight to it, you're gonna miss so many opportunities. And I credit the ad contrarian Bob Hoffman with this. This is an industry that it's the only business in the world that uses creativity to solve business problems. It's the only one. In the way that we form things, in the way that we do things. And so there you go. I think we just did a TED Talk. All right.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Andrew, as always, thank you so much. Number one, for your support. Number two, for just being a great leader in this business. And for number three, taking it on the chin with this Eagles hat. So there you go. Go Birds. Appreciate it very much. And as always, best wishes for continued success, my man.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. Much appreciated. Happy to support.